on my feet, stomping out the negativity. Everybody not a friend of me. Spread the love, still I move deliberately. Bully face on, but the smile be heavenly. Brooklyn girls, so they love the energy, love sincerity. So I take the liberty to take them on a journey lyrically. Through hallways and alleys, dark days I carry, sharp pains and bellies. All days be heavy when you're programmed to survive. Legendary ciphers get the MCs in the jars. The city never sleeps, slept from 1 to 5. When COVID hit the block and we had to stay inside. Tough love is all I know, so be gentle with my soul. Learn to navigate winters with no coat. If you never been cold, you never been broke.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the next chapter, where we discuss shades of gray. I am your host, Minister Cat, aka Miss Kitty Rose. Today is a blur because it's so nice outside, but we're still in the end of winter. Spring is not here yet, but we're so looking forward to it. As you can tell, if you guys are outside this week, folks is outside with shorts, but not quite yet. So welcome back to the next chapter where we discuss shades of gray. And I'm going to come back today with another parenting show in this series that we are doing, Navigating the Space of Raising Adult Children. So today's topic of the week, what's the topic of the week? The topic of the week today is parenting adult children, the historical roots and preventative wisdom. The historical roots and preventative wisdom. So here's the setup. I noticed that I'm doing the research, we're doing the work, but it's so much deeper than just what is in front of us, just what we don't know, just what we do know. It's so much that I had to think about, okay, I'm giving folks tools, I'm getting tools, we're doing these town hall meetings, we're bringing in Quinnell, where did I get that from? Quinnell. But how can we truly be better or benefit from what we're learning if we don't even understand the source of something? So what I realized is that parenting was not always a choice, right? Marriage was often contractual. Children were often legacy tools. Love was not always the foundation. So I want to pose this question to you all. If generations were raised without obligation, survival, war, addiction, and activism, how do we expect ourselves to instinctively parent from wholeness? So I was watching, I'm going to break this up into segments so that it kind of makes sense. But of course, we can't have everything in one conversation. I'm not going to reference any YouTube videos this episode because I really wanted to sit down and talk to you guys directly, like a heart-to-heart, because of what I was seeing on television, right? So that's going back to the setup. So segment 1 is the history of forced parenting. The history of forced parenting. Now, I was watching Bridgerton. And when I was watching, Bridgerton, the moms are all, encouraging and making their daughters the socialites for the season, looking for the prospects of husbands. And 2 particular stories. One was a daughter who was getting married, but then as she got married, or when she got married at the age of, I want to say 17, 18, she hadn't had the conversation with her mother about sex and what to expect, how it's going to feel, what she should do, what she should expect. But then there was another mom who was also kind of maneuvering in a very strategic but shady way for her daughter's marriage. But when they got caught and didn't work out, the mother's reasoning was, well, I've always been taught that in order to secure my children or my daughter's well-being, that I have to marry her off. I don't know anything else. I don't know how to tell my daughter how to communicate, how to be a good wife, how to be a good partner. All I know is that a man is the head of the house, take care of everything, and we fall in line. Even though we run the household, it's the man, the husband, who's making all of the decisions. And if he doesn't really know me for real, are any of those decisions with me in mind as his wife, as his partner? And then there was another situation with Queen Charlotte herself, seemed to appear to be a loving mother, but for the most part, dropped off her kids to the nannies. So how was that relationship actually nurtured if your nannies are the caretakers of your children? Then I thought about, okay, that's television. I thought about, again, bringing it back home. So my grandmother, we've talked about this before, was married off extremely young. But if you're 13, 14, married off, and you're still a child or a young person who is still developing their own identity, what they know, what they like, and now at 13, 14, you become someone's wife and someone's mother. What do you know? I remember the story of Aretha Franklin. Her first baby was 14, 13 years old. What does she know? And not only what does she know, but now she's an entertainer, so she's on the road. So how much of an impact can she really have in the nurturing process? It just becomes an act. It just becomes a tool. It just becomes something that happens. And I talked about the historical roots because I'm thinking about centuries before. I'm referencing the empire, the Roman Empire, where children were used as political necessities, where we could think about European dynasties that married for land and power. We could think about the imperial China, who required male heirs not for succession. So we know that many African kingdoms prioritize bloodline continuity. Did I say that right? So women were often vessels. Women were often vessels, and men were expected to produce heirs. Love was optional, but legacy was mandatory. So the question I want to ask to you guys before we go to our first break is, what happens when children are born out of duty instead of desire? Let's take our first break of the night. It was amazing because it was an intimate setting where we all got to share ideas.
The class was very, very informative.
I feel like it's the first step towards seriously taking your business and your business plan seriously.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot about marketing. We're still learning more.
Sitting down with yourself and jotting down goals and listening and getting other feedback from the participants in the class.
Definitely come because you're going to learn a lot. It was very entertaining. It was very engaging. The instructor, Kitty Rose, was wonderful. She kept us engaged, and not only the instructor was good, the people that was there, I learned a lot from them. I had a lot of fun. I met a lot of people. We all talked and we all brainstormed.
It wasn't just me as an instructor, but it was us collectively coming together as artists. So that was beautiful, that it wasn't just one person's voice, but it was a collective of ideas that was generated, and everyone got something from it.
This is Anita G. Shout out to BronxNet in the marketing class with Kitty Rose.
Yes, shout out to BronxNet. Last year, well, the last 2 years, but really last year, I was commissioned to be a teaching artist here at BronxNet, teaching branding and marketing. And it was so successful that I decided to create these master classes for myself, for my clientele that happens to watch BronxNet, or watch me on BronxNet, but also who are outside of the New York area that wanted to be able to contact and benefit from the things that I was able to teach here during my time as a teaching artist here at BronxNet. But that's no more. Right now, I am teaching independently, and you can reach out to me, or you can go to my website to get your own masterclass of branding and marketing. But shout out to BronxNet for believing in me and allowing me to bring this program to our facilities here in the Bronx. So I talked about in segment 1, ancient legacy and lineage, really taking it way back to traditions that we had nothing to deal with, because arranged marriages didn't end in the 18th century. So when we go to segment 2 is unhealthy marriages and emotional blueprints. So what did I mean by that? Unhealthy marriages and emotional blueprints. Like I said, arranged marriages didn't end in the 18th century. We still have arranged marriages to this day. So if Europe still practiced strategic marriage contracts across classes. What do we mean by classes? Remember, I don't know if you guys seen the movie Origin. There are different levels and classes of people. So now these contracts are being made across classes. It's not just the rich folks. So we have to shift again to asking you guys another question. Parents who say they're doing it for their children. Emotional disconnect. Nannies raising aristocrat children. Children observe resentment instead of affection. So if I break those 4 parts down, parents saying they're doing things for the children. How is that really broken down, and how is that beneficial for them? Because sometimes I've heard parents say, well, my mother did it for me, or my dad did it for me. And we try to do our best to kind of like educate but not really give details, right? Is that beneficial by not sharing exactly what's involved in these developments that I'm walking into as I come into motherhood, as I come into being someone's wife? So there's an emotional disconnect. Because if the person behind me or that I trust to put me now into this new situation, but are not communicating with me, then now I have a disconnect possibly to my children that I'm bearing, because I can only move on what happened to me or reference what happened to me. And if my parents were disconnecting, not to say they did not love me, but if they were disconnected based off of what being a young person, really that's what I'm getting at, then how can they have connect to us? Or how can we repeat something we've had happen to us or that we've seen if it's not done in our home? And then the nannies raising our children. Like I said, that reference to Queen Charlotte, if our responsibility is just to bear children, and my grandmother on my father's side had 22 kids. 22. So what emotional connection do you have to your children if you're an aristocrat, and now, as soon as you have a child, it's off to the nannies because your responsibility is to this kingdom that you're reigning over? And then children who observe resentment instead of affection. They know you love them, but now they resent you. Because they might see other relationships outside of their own that are developing, and during that time, they probably didn't see any relationships that were any different from theirs. But resentment can definitely come into play, and not even on purpose, or not even consciously. I want to give you a psychological fact that children model what they see, not what they're told. So if your reference point for love, is tension, if your reference point for fatherhood is absence, if your reference point for motherhood is exhaustion, then let me ask you, audience, what do you produce? Let's take a break.
Comic Books for Justice was funded to do what many think is impossible: transform lives behind bars with comics, receiving the Community Leaders Grant from Citizens Committee for New York City. We will place 10,000 comics in correctional facilities across New York State through our Turning the Page initiative, in partnership with SUNY and Hudson Link for Higher Education in Prison. Comics drive literacy, hope, and real change. And we're just getting started. Next up, Comics in the City, bringing this power to youth across NYC. Want to fuel this movement? Become one of our 100 super friends. Donate now. Visit cb4j.org and help us turn the page on justice.
So if your reference point is tension, if your reference point, we're talking about adult children who are now coming into parenting. But as adult children, when they were children, based off of how their parents taught them, if their reference point is for love is tension, and their reference point for fatherhood is absence, and their reference point for motherhood is exhaustion, then again, I ask the question for you to think about. What do you produce? Or what do you reproduce is more of the question. What do you reproduce? So segment 3, that takes us into segment 3. And segment 3 is about war, trauma, and the industrial motherhood, right? Okay, so now I talked about, because this is really deep-rooted. The topic of the week was the historical roots. The historical roots, because this is not just our issues. That's what's so messed up about life. Because we are really suffering from the actions of people before us. So when I think about like the Roman Empire, right? Think about African Empire, Chinese, all of that, right? But what happens when we came into the 1900s, right? The 1900s, now we got the World War II. World War I and World War II. But in World War II, the reason why I referenced that war is because now we have the industrial workforce surge of women, right? So now the fathers are at war. Young fathers, don't get it twisted. Remember, we got fathers who are 17, 18 who lied about their age. But most of the men are in their 20s that are in these wars. So these are young fathers, young men, right? And then the women do our part. They go into now the workforce, right? Because they can do it. They want to be a part of this. So they go into the workforce, but mind you, we still have kids, our children going to school. We still have to come home now after they're at the workforce. We still have to come home and be a mom, right? So we have to come home and be a mom, but we're tired because we were just housewives a minute ago, but now we're full-time workers. So how does that shift happen? How does a woman shift from factory mechanically to bedtime lullabies? Many don't. And then we have to go back to when the fathers come home from war. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. My mother's husband served in Vietnam. And I watch these movies. And mind you, these are movies. So we don't know up close what it's like to kill and see death. And then they come home to parenting? So how does a trained soldier, a trained killer, re-enter with softness? How does a woman, like I said, shift from being now the breadwinner to bedtime lullabies? It just doesn't happen. Well, it can happen, but many times it doesn't happen. So unprocessed trauma now becomes emotional distance. Does any of these things trigger to you? Emotional distance, anger, silence, hypercontrol. Generational trauma research shows that children of veterans have higher rates of anxiety and emotional deregulation. This is where tough love culture expands. Let's take another break. One of our honorees today is the beautiful, glamorous, you already know her. So what do judges look like? And then you're coming to New York?
Yes.
Ah.
I'm coming to the U.S.
Okay. The Bronx native is in the building.
We are out here. Thank you so much. Getting on the bus alone scared me because I have underlying health issues.
Have you guys been open the whole 7 months? Did you have to close?
We went through a lot, but we had to follow the procedure.
Some R&B, some more Latin flavor. And I couldn't have done it without my start here at Bronx Net.
We're so proud of you. Thank you for what you do, Miss Kitty Rose.
Great. Thank you for what you've done tonight and your professionalism and the way you engage the audience. I can't wait to see the footage.
I love, love, love partnerships and collaborations, as you guys can tell. So shout out to Innovative Clips, Angel Gonzalez for editing that video, and the music. If you guys love the music, shout out to Robert Brizzle. I hope I'm saying it right. But Never Lose Touch, NLT. They have a residency, I think, at the casino up in Yonkers, but Never Lose Touch. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Angel. Again, partnerships. I'm always talking about partnerships. So let me go into break 3 because we went into ancient times, right? We came up to the early 19th century, but guess what? In segment 4, drugs, symptomatic disruption, and blame. Now, who in my audience remember the crack epidemic, right? Who remember our president at the time, Reagan? Just say no to drugs. His wife, Nancy, crack is whack. However, the United States was pouring in drugs to the communities. We all know that the CIA was using drug dealers to traffic drugs into our community. So now what happens to those parents? What happened to the children of those parents who got stuck on drugs during the 80s crack epidemic? Now, not only did we know that the 80s created this epidemic of drugs in our community, but when it went from Los Angeles and came to New York, or the trail, communities were destabilized. And what else happened? Mass incarcerations, addiction cycles, children raising themselves. I was watching something, The Adventure of Pete and Mr. and Pete with Jennifer Holliday. She was on drugs, crack addict. And a whole summer, these two little boys were taking care of themselves to the point that they put a raw turkey in the oven and got burned because they fell asleep. Had no heat or had no AC, so they were underneath a fan. It's the summertime. But for a minute, Pete did not look like, or Mr. did not look like that was the first time that had happened. So what happens to those kids? What happens when our fathers are in prison and then come home? There's so many elements that are bigger than us, and yet we're trying to have these productive relationships with our children. But we got all these things that's almost set up to keep us separate, keep us disconnected. And the reason why I say it's symptomatic is because we have other countries where those issues, mass incarceration, addiction, are not issues because they're dealt with. Where in this society, in the United States, it builds and helps their economy. So now layer the emotional responsibility that comes with this, right? Mothers are carrying guilt from children who were born with health complications, fathers incarcerated, homes led by grandparents. And here's the spiritual tension. Do you look at a child as a consequence or as redemption? Statistics show addiction strongly correlates with trauma history. And trauma rarely begins with drugs. It precedes it. Trauma rarely begins with drugs. It precedes it. Let's go to another break.
Community partnerships is a gathering of like-minded people who are interested in maintaining the legacy of their ancestors through arts and culture, and having conversations on a monthly basis with what I call art practitioners is just something that I'm wedded to. And again, Harlem Arts Alliance is the vehicle that we use to do that work.
Community partnerships are essential, I believe, for building long-term relationships and understanding of the community and the art. I think that that is the core of how we can really sustain the presence of Black and brown artists by being engaged consistently and joyfully.
Community partnership is all about creating legacy.
Community partnerships mean to me stronger communities.
Community partnerships mean strength.
The partnership is connection. Fostering a connection to be able to reach out to run an idea by a friend who can then connect you to others.
Community partnerships mean a lot. It means collaboration. It means connecting with one another to create something bigger than themselves.
One word that describes how I feel when I leave these meetings?
Empowered.
Inspiration.
Inspired. Renewed.
Inspired. Inspired.
Again, Partnerships, full circle moments. For those that are interested here in New York, our next Harlem Arts Town Hall meeting is March 27th at the School of Arts, or the Harlem School of the Arts. Harlem School of the Arts, March 27th from 10 a.m. 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. The Harlem Arts Alliance. I love working with them, and they have become a great partnership because not only do they underwrite this parenting series that I'm doing through the grants that I am hoping to receive, but they have also allowed me to be, or allowed a space for businesses to come together and partner. Kobena and I shot that video together, and he edited. Once again, another full circle moment of collaborations, people, shared organizations working together for a genuine purpose, and also, you know, to add to the pocket. Okay, everything ain't community. We are all out here as artists, as business owners, making a living and finding different ways to generate our income based off our skill set that we have established through government programs like this, such as BronxNet Television. So, what segment are we on? Segment 4. Activism versus intimacy. Activism versus intimacy, when purpose competes with parenting. So the first person that I referenced, I put some other people, and I'm going to come back to them because I wanted to talk about King and Malcolm X and, you know, the women at home of these great leaders like Coretta Scott King or like Betty Shabazz, right? I definitely want to hit on the impact to those families when the mothers are the core homebody and still have to be male and female in the roles and the responsibility to the caregivers, right? So when we have such revolutionary fathers, unfortunately, they become widowed mothers. And then children raised under public pressure because their fathers had this big purpose and created this big sacrifice that now they have to like almost live up to this idealism of what they should be from someone that they didn't know. You know, just recently, Dr. King's one of his daughters, I think it was Beatrice, was saying that, you know, she doesn't really have many memories of her childhood with her father. She has this icon father, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, but her memories are not extensive. But she had one memory that she shared, and it was a memory where I guess when all the children, you know, would greet their dad when he came home, and the way that he responded to each one of them differently kind of was like a routine of something that she remembered of when her dad came home, that love and comfort that she felt. But here's the gray area. How do you serve the world and still fully nurture your home? So when I thought about King, when I thought about Malcolm X, and when I thought about Coretta King and Betty Shabazz, initially some years ago, I thought about Nina Simone. That was the first mom or parent that kind of disappointed me. And who dare I be disappointed with any other human? But it disappointed me because I knew of her music and I knew of her activism work. But the stories of her daughter, now that she's made the transition, her daughter says that she wasn't a very good mother. So some children rise empowered, right? Like, I think Dick Gregory's kids, or even Malcolm X kids. You see his daughters actively in the field, in the movement. But some also feel abandoned by destiny. Take a moment to think about that. Some of those children feel abandoned by the destiny, by being overshadowed by this parent that they had. So even though the intent to be this powerful voice, use your voice for something powerful in the world, you kind of did a disservice to what matters most. And I take that into 2026. 2025, 2024, 2023, 2023, we were all in these streets protesting. Black Lives Matter. I can breathe. But how is the balance if black fathers or black mothers or black fathers don't teach their black sons how to be or how to handle themselves when they're being approached by police? Or how to feel entitled to be the God you are because they're too involved in changing the narrative of what's going on outside. And all of these things play a part into our parenting children and then parenting adults. Because if we had a disconnect with them as children, we're going to have a disconnect to them as adults. Now, before we go to our next break, I had a revelation. I'm 52. And for those that have been following this journey of mine, you guys know that I am not the closest at all to my biological mother. And guess what? I showed her the show that we just did, celebrating my 20 years in business, and she said, I'm not going to tell you everything she said, but she gave me such love and accolades that maybe, possibly, we might be able to finally have an adult relationship. And I'm excited about that. But I'm 52, and she's 72. When it's finally, maybe, possibly happening, I have a brother, African brother, who's 44 years old. He just did a beautiful premiere of a full-featured film from Ghana, in Ghana. He did his premiere in Ghana. At 44, financed a picture film himself. And his mother did not come to the premiere because there's a disconnect that they have in communication. Love is there. Love is there. But respect. Whew. Let's take another break.
My son, Ricky, took his life by the use of a firearm. It broke me in ways that I never knew that I could be broken. And I contemplated suicide. I still own my firearm. I keep it in a safe because I want to keep my grandson and myself safe. Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
There is a road laid out for me.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
Leading down to the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
What do you think?
I know this road is there for me. If I'm really free, take me down to the river and walk.
So I know I'm giving you guys a lot today. We got 6 segments. 6 segments. Is it 6 segments? 6 segments. This being the 6th segment. And again, I want to tell you guys, parenting adult children, the historical roots and preventive wisdom. So this is a segment that I'm going to give you some prevention before you become a parent. But before I do that, the reason why I chose the adoption video for the last announcement that we made or the last break that we made, because sometimes parenting doesn't always come from us directly. But there are still so many homes and still so many people that can benefit from adoption because of all of these things that sometimes parents or biological parents are not able to do. No shade and disrespect. Sometimes that's the best thing a parent can do, is to give their child up for adoption. So I encourage all those who want kids, don't stray away from adopting because that child will become yours. So, segment 6, prevention before you become a parent. We cannot undo how we've arrived. We just can't. But what we can do is prepare for those coming next, right? So I think that people should ask these questions before having children. What is their relationship with their parents? How do people resolve, or how do you resolve conflict? Is there untreated trauma? What is their relationship with responsibility? Do they desire children or fear being alone? How do they handle stress? What addictions run in your bloodline? Because generational patterns are unexamined. Become generational patterns that repeat. Let me say that again. Generational patterns. Generational patterns unexplained become generational patterns that get repeated. One last time for the people in the back. Generational patterns repeated become, wrong. See, that's why I had to say it again for the people in the back. Generational patterns unexamined become generational patterns repeated. Now, this is not about blame. It's about awareness. Okay? It's not about blame. It's about awareness. So, if I take you into my Jesus moment, right? Because, of course, we always have one. The Spirit guided me. The Spirit moved me, right? And this is what the Jesus moment gave me. Here is the healing truth. We are not our parents' trauma. We're not our grandparents. Let's do it that way. You, because I'm talking to you, the audience. You are not your grandparents' silence. You are not your lineage addiction. But, however, you are responsible for what you pass forward. For what you pass forward. Jesus broke generational silence. Jesus broke generational cycles. Not with dominance, not with force, but with sacrifice and restoration. Maybe the real revolution isn't activism. Maybe the real revolution is healed parenting. Let's take our last break for the night, and when we come back, I got a Did You Know segment for you. I'll be right back.
From handcuffs to paychecks,
NYC's $3.5 billion cannabis industry needs you.
while 94% of marijuana arrests hit people of color,
The legal market is booming with over 60,000 jobs coming online. That's where Cannabis in the City comes in.
we're bringing you real talk
Real stories,
and real justice from the front lines of New York's cannabis transformation.
from Let's Talk Cannabis to our Corner Boys segments.
We're breaking down the scene with truth, tools, and community.
Watch justice-impacted New Yorkers turn their lived experience into career opportunities.
Subscribe to Cannabis in the City on YouTube. Let's spark the conversation.
I surrender.
All right, pal. Get ready for the day, buddy.
Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Do we have a gun?
What's that?
Do we have a gun?
Jason, let's go see your room.
No, that's not right. How was it? Is it good?
You know you don't have to wear your PT gear anymore, right?
It's comfortable.
So how's civilian life treating you?
It's fine.
When I got out, I didn't want to admit that there was anything wrong because I felt like a failure. And then I realized, like, there's nothing to be ashamed of. So I started talking to someone. Maybe you are fine, but if you're not, it's okay.
Thank you.
If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach.
The father had final say over the life of that child, including the legal right to abandon an infant. Parenting wasn't just emotional. It was political, it was structural. So now, how do you move forward from that? Because did you know that post-traumatic stress disorder, what we now call PTSD, wasn't formally recognized as a diagnosis until 1980. So for centuries, soldiers came home from war carrying invisible wounds. In World War I, they called it shell shock. In World War II, they called it combat fatigue. But it wasn't officially acknowledged until decades later. So imagine generations of fathers coming home traumatized, unrecognized, and expected to lead households like nothing happened. Now consider this. Did you know that during World War II, more than 6 million American women entered the workforce? Factories, industrial plants, assembly lines. Women who had been homemakers were suddenly breadwinners, while raising children and holding families together alone. So that shift changed family dynamics permanently. Now, let's talk the modern impact. Did you know that children of incarcerated parents are statistically more likely to experience housing instability, emotional stress, and academic disruption? That does not mean destiny, but research shows an increased risk. Instability in one generation often ripples into the next. And here's something even deeper. Did you know that research suggests many adults unconsciously choose partners whose emotional attachment styles mirror their early caregivers? So again, if love was chaotic, if love was conditional, sometimes we repeat what feels familiar, even if it wasn't healthy. And finally, emerging research in epigenetics suggests severe trauma may influence how stress hormones are regulated across generations. So in other words, trauma doesn't just affect memories, it can also affect biology. So when we talk about parenting, we're not just talking about personal choices. We're talking about history, war, policy, addiction, survival, and silence. Parenting has never existed in a vacuum. But here's the good news. If history shaped us, then wisdom can reshape our children. And that is where prevention begins. So, what did we learn? What did we gather? That sometimes I feel like the stacks have been stacked, the obstacles have been stepped up or stacked up against us, right? So sometimes it's like, it feels like failing is almost done on purpose, right? And this is where I go back to like the devil. And people say, oh, the devil's a liar, right? Because if we go back to technically what first happened, it was our faith and our love and our obedience being challenged. We're only going to serve God because of what he gives us. We're going to doubt what God tells us with giving instructions because we're going to test it. We're going to see if I eat of this fruit, if I disobey God, what will happen to me? So disobeying God, now my children are born into sin. And then you got this, you got this, what we've been taught is this being that was once an angel and became jealous of his creator and threatened or challenged that authority, cast out of heaven, cast out of above, thrown into the abyss, and this angel who was beautiful and loyal at one point now becomes the devil, the opposer, the opposition. But the reason why we as Christians say the devil's a liar is because Jehovah's going to make sure, that eventually everyone gets the knowledge and information and power to be their best selves. Because we know that symptomatic stuff is out of our control. So since stuff is out of our control of what has already happened, what we control is how we now behave. And we can only behave once we have new information, right? So a few seconds ago, you saw the Facebook group page. Join us. Join the conversation because this show comes on every week. But the issues that affect our community when it comes to our tone, relationships, understanding, is not something we can only have once a week. Why not join a group, join a community that's discussing their trials, their benefits, their joys, their pains, the next chapter. The next chapters of our lives. Because I always say, or I started saying last year, everything ain't black and white. That's why I say we have conversations based off of shades of gray. Because since everything is not black and white, we have to, as a people, start to question things more. When I give you guys scriptures, don't take my word for it because I'm a minister. Read those scriptures yourself. Have those scriptures become your, I want to say Bible, but yeah, your Bible. In the Bible, we're taught that the Bible is like this suit of armor, right? Because we need armor when we're out in war. And we are in a war, ladies and gentlemen. We are in a war because we are also in the last days. I don't know if you've heard this. Everyone has said, we've been in the last days. Slavery, Jews. Like, we've had so much happen in our lives throughout history. We've always said these are the last days. But again, we also know that time is an illusion. I'm 52. Where? How? Where that happen? So if we know that time is an illusion, according to the Creator, when the scriptures tell us that he's going to come as a thief in the night, nobody knows, these last days could have been the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. But in these last days, we know that we are coming closer to the end. And even if we weren't coming closer to the end in the last days, the way that this world is going, none of us are promised tomorrow. So all we have is today to live and to expand our knowledge of what we need to question so that we could really be fulfilled in the entirety of the time that we have here. That's the purpose of the next chapter. That's the purpose of me. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to tell y'all what to do. I don't preach perfection. I preach mercy because in the mercy that Jehovah gives us, it allows us the understanding now, not to blame history, not to blame what our parents did, not to blame the colonizers, not to blame anyone, but to take the onus upon ourselves, learn what we have to do when something we know that we're doing doesn't feel right, when something we know we're doing is not giving us the outcomes we want. Something has to change. And that change begins with you. And then when that change begins with you, it helps us. Once again, everyone, this is your girl, Minister Cat, a.k.a. Miss Kitty Rose. I need you all to follow, like, and share. Follow, like, and share. Because this movement is not mine alone. This is our movement. Because if I'm better, you're better. Because it don't make any sense for me to be better and you're not better, and we still work together. We still live together. We still play together. So we all need to be better. And let's say you want to listen to me in your car or listen to me while you're chilling. You can do that on all available podcast platforms. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel and help the coins. Or you can donate to the QR code that you saw to the work. Because the work is constant. It doesn't stop. This parenting series is a lot bigger than just you and I. This parenting series, as we showed in today's show, is rooted in past stuff. But it is our responsibility in 2026, our responsibility today to be the change agent we want to see. To be the change agent that we want to be a part of. If you're not around progressive people, change your environment. If you're not around people that are uplifting you, change your association. Because the one thing the scriptures did say is that bad association spoils useful habit. So if you're around other people that's doing negative things, guess what? Guess what? So where are you? At the next chapter. And once again, I am Miss Kitty Rose, Minister Cat. Go to my blog. But probably by the time you guys see this, I will have my website. Because my brother Elohim is working on updating me now, 20 years old. Yes, the blog, that did its justice for me. It allowed me to have everything I was doing professionally in my career. But 20 years in, need a website. So listen on all podcast platforms. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Join our Facebook group page. Listen on podcast platforms. Check us out on BronxNet every Saturday at 6. Brick on Mondays. Manhattan Neighborhood Network on Wednesdays. Every day of the week here in New York. And anytime you want to on YouTube. And, whew, this has been a good show. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of this journey. This is the next chapter where we discuss shades of gray. I am your host, closing out, Minister Cat, a.k.a. Kitty Rose. The revolution has begun. Until next time, I'll see you guys in the Matrix. All right, baby. Mwah. I love you all.
Tim's on my feet, stomping out the negativity. Everybody not a friend of me. Spread the love, still I move deliberately. Bully face on, but the smile be heavenly.